You're listening to the Patient Experience Blueprint with Intibio.
I'm Deja Leonard. I'm the content marketing manager here at Intibio, and I'm going to be interviewing our CEO, Josh DeVries, about our trends report.
Hey, Deja, thank you for taking the time to do this. Super excited to jump into some of these details.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love this content piece. It's an exciting one every year. So let's just start at the high level. What is the trends report all about?
Yeah. So the Trends Report's an annual report that we put together at Intivio to really give you a sneak peek of what to expect over the coming year. We work with thousands of offices, large institutions, single practice providers, and each of them has a different thing they should be focusing in on. And we wanted to give this knowledge to the industry to help you get ready for having the best 2025 possible.
Absolutely. Okay, so the first big trend in the report is how digital dentistry is on the rise. Can you kind of recap what that's all about?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, people have heard the term, the buzzword digital dentistry. I remember when I just got into dentistry, it was about having a paperless office and, having digital charting. But now it's evolved much more into an entire digital experience. Everything from having your forms collected and completed digitally, having your reminders go out digitally, obviously having still your charting and your finance and your billing all digital, but essentially creating a digital office where your patients can interact with you when they're not in the practice, whether it's be through your website, through your services, or even through social media. And it's definitely on the rise. This is no longer a nice to have aspect to your practice. This is something that patients are coming to expect, and they want it for convenience. They want it for access, and they want it for visibility 24/7. And that's really what we're seeing. People redo their websites and just reapproach that online visual digital footprint.
Excellent. And a big part of this trend is also how practitioners are kind of implementing AI. How is Intivio looking to leverage AI in our technology in the future?
Yeah, the big AI buzzword. It's definitely something that you want to be very thoughtful in how you approach AI. What we have found is that some patients are definitely open to leveraging AI, but in Tivio, we try to use it in areas where they wouldn't expect it. So we never want to replace the front desk with an AI robot. That's just bad business. Patients don't like it. They want to talk to a human. This is personal health care. They want to have that personal element. Where we find AI to be useful at Intivio is to give your front desk staff more tools, more resources to be more efficient. This can be things like short writing of your text messages, summarizing your phone calls, giving you more information at your fingertips when we think you're going to need it. Now, when it comes to how patients interact with it, our viewpoint is that you only want to use it in areas where there hasn't been a traditional human there.
Mm,
A great example would be when your office is closed. If they could text message an AI robot to get information about their next appointment, what maybe they need to still complete, that is a service that they're going to appreciate because the alternative historically has been nothing. But we definitely, like I said earlier, do not want to use it in lieu of a human. This is still a really personal industry, and patients are expect to have that personal level of care from your staff. So yeah, you definitely want to walk that fine line, but it's super exciting stuff, and I think we're going to see even more time savings with AI for your front staff than we did with appointment reminders and confirmations.
absolutely. Okay. And those were some great examples there of how to kind of have that balance of using the power of AI while also, still maintaining that connection with patients, which is super important and a big differentiator, I think, for a lot of practices. So you've mentioned this already, the term patient expectations, and our next trend is that they're rising. What does this trend look like in our industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's no surprise to anyone that over the past 10 years, dental offices have been popping up everywhere. We have the rise of the DSO market coming in, where there's just so much choice, where historically there's been one or two, dental offices in your community. That's just where you went. So people now have choice, and now they're starting to leverage, what are the different benefits of going to the office? Now, location always is really a strong one. Patient care is another one, but leveraging technology to make sure they're not forgotten about, that patients don't fall through the cracks, is a really strong one. Because if a patient hasn't been to your practice for over a year, or hopefully definitely not over 2 years, the likelihood they're not just going to find somewhere new altogether to go is quite low. So we want to make sure that we're always engaging patients and we're making sure that we stay top of mind whenever they think of their oral health.
That's great. Yeah. And, you had actually mentioned, we're talking about patient engagement. You had mentioned text messaging a little bit earlier as well. And, what I find is interesting in our benchmark report that we put out over the summer, it shows that patients actually prefer communication via text, when we're thinking about some of that engagement. Why do
Mhm.
you think that is? Or kind of what could be the background towards that?
I think it's convenience, it's really about we are inundated with messages, whether it be ads that are being served, whether it's emails we need to read, whether it's our friends texting us and people calling us. And I think gone are the days where a business is going to feel like they have the right to call your cell phone and to have you pick up. Now, they might, if they're expecting a call, still pick up that call. But I know for me personally, I'm picking up less and less live phone calls, and text messages allow me to kind of communicate on my terms.
Yeah.
Now, the benefit for the office is this is also a huge advantage for you. You can text multiple patients at the exact same time, where a traditional phone call is one. So there's definitely ways where both parties can win. But I think it's this idea of I'll get to you when I feel like I need to. I know there's an expectation, within 24 hours, I should reply to a text message. But the great news is we're seeing response times being significantly lower. Within 1 hour, the average patient is texting back a response to your request. So whether that's confirming their appointment or getting that form completed or confirming they are, managing their fasting instructions, you actually are getting faster response times than trying to call someone, leave a voicemail, and playing that phone tag. So I think it's really a best of both worlds for both the providers and the patients. And it's really exciting to see more and more offices leveraging this technology.
Excellent. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I've had very similar kind of experiences there. Um, so, when we're thinking about these rising expectations, are there any kind of pitfalls or things that practices should keep in mind as they try to navigate, what to do and how to meet these expectations that continue to change over time?
I think one of the most important things whenever there's rising expectations and there's more competition is to really do some self-reflection and understand, why are patients coming to you? Is it because you're doing these elective treatments, whether it be Botox or teeth whitening, that other offices around you aren't doing? Is it because you have a specialty in pediatrics and family dentistry and you love children, you're really good with dealing with them? Is it because you want to offer all the digital conveniences, or maybe it's you have a spa-like atmosphere? You really want to lean into what are you known for? Why do patients choose you? And to double down on those areas. I believe that as patient expectations are rising, as the markets are changing, people are going to be much more intentional on why they choose things. And the good news is you already have a large group of patients that have chosen you. You just need to reflect on why that is and be more intentional in creating more of that type of atmosphere or more of those types of services. Because there is definitely a room for many providers to win, but it can't just be a me too provider. It can't be, middle of the road patient care, middle of the road services, middle of the road digital convenience. You need to see where you want to be excellent and where you're willing to pay less attention to, and then be intentional of how you're upgrading and improving that experience over the coming year.
Awesome. That's a great tip that I think will be very helpful. So next up, we have a trend that shows that cosmetic dentistry is leading the way when it comes to innovation. Why do you think this, section is advancing so quickly?
I mean, humans are vain creatures, vain social creatures. So we always want to look good. We want to feel our best. And I think today, the digital cosmetic experience has really taken a turn for convenience, and it's not as time consuming. There's more and more options that can be done in office. People are milling their own teeth inside the office. There's more access to better dental labs and new technology with scanning, that people are really able to get that kind of perfect Hollywood smile or that perfect natural smile, and they're willing to pay a premium to do it. We saw this about 20 years ago with orthodontics when it just came onto the market, where it was that everyone had to have it. But now it's actually becoming much more cosmetic in the sense of veneers and full mouth restorations, and really not only just finding functional lab work, but highly cosmetic lab work where every single tooth is a piece of art that has been crafted by an expert craftsman to create that natural look. So I think there's a couple of things happening. There is obviously these rise of expectations, but technology's come to a point where we can meet people and give them a smile that is artificial in nature, but very natural and aesthetic. And people want that. People want their smile to stick out because it's the thing that people remember us most about.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And one other thing that comes to mind to me, you spoke about kind of that digitalization, like people can visualize their smile before they essentially go in and purchase that. But then, do you think other outside factors, maybe like social media or things like that, also are impacting this industry and maybe people's, ability or their need to kind of go through some of these procedures?
Yeah, I think, like I said before, right, we're social beings. So whenever we see what other people have, we want it. And I think social media, as well as just the prevalence of this treatment, the more and more people that get it, the more and more people are going to want to have it. And I
Mm,
referenced, earlier, probably actually closer to 30 years ago with orthodontic work, everyone had to have it. Every single kid in high school had to have their braces, and it became popular. And now we're seeing that trend be around the more cosmetic areas. We're also seeing more and more practices offer cosmetic services outside of dentistry, whether it be Botox or teeth whitening. There's definitely more of a desire to solve the entire facial cosmetic side of the patient's needs.
excellent. Yeah. And if you can go to the same spot to get it all done and you trust them, that's I'm sure that's great for patients as well. Okay, so our fourth trend in the report is how this sales to dental service organizations, that is on the rise. So what's the background context for this trend? Why are more practices selling?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. We are at a very interesting point in history for dentistry where the largest groups of dentists by age are going to be retiring over the next 10 years. And there's not really anyone to fill those spots. And what happens is that there's now becomes more supply and less demand of new patients that are looking to buy practice or new providers looking to buy practices. So what has happened, and I think it's great because it's feeding the need of the market, is these corporations, these dental support organizations, are actually purchasing these practices and then hiring staff to run them like a specialization. So if you're now a doctor or hygienist, you can work for a DSO and all you do is your craft. All you do is, you're filling, you're doing your drills, you're doing your fills, you're doing your implants, you're doing your bridges and your root canals and all of that. And you're doing very little admin work. You're not having to do payroll. You're not having to do insurance claims. You can really just focus in and get paid on the craft that you've spent, a significant portion of your life learning and mastering. And the same goes for hygienic. They don't need to worry about growing their patient base or delivering all these services or taking on the additional expenses because the DSO can provide it for them. So I think there's a level of convenience where more and more people just want to focus in on the craft that they were trained to do. And additionally, there's a surplus of offices that are going to be closing because doctors are retiring, and there's not enough new providers to buy these practices. So both things are happening at once, and it's really creating a market where the patient can choose for what type of experience they want. Do they want to have more of a mom and pop single provider, experience where you're probably going to have that more personalized patient care? They know who you are. They know who your kids are. Heck, they may even know who your grandkids are. Or do you want to have more of the convenience factor where you walk in and everyone is specialized in the craft they're performing? They have the receptionist that's really focused in on making sure your billing and your insurance claims are explained and paid quickly. You have your provider who's really focused on just delivering you the best care. He doesn't care about what your insurance will cover or any other ancillary things like profit margins. And then you'll have your hygienist who's really focused on, making sure you're getting a good cleaning. They're catching any preventative or restorative work that needs to be done. So I think it's going to be different experiences for different people, but it definitely is rising. And, the good news is that different patients value different things, and your insurance allows you to go where you want. So I think it's overall good. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting dynamic that's going to continue to grow over the next decade.
Excellent. Okay. And when you think about the perspective from a DSO, is there anything that they should keep in mind as they begin to grow their portfolio of practices when we think about whether it's optimization, continuity, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, they probably don't need any advice from people like me. They have really smart people running their organizations and corporations to where they can, make their advantage. And I think honestly, the best advice I could give them was the same advice I'd give to any dentist, where is understand your brand, understand why patients choose to go to you, and really lean into it. Examples for DSOs, I think, are just like baselines. Is brand standardization, technology
Mhm.
standardization. Try to make the experience natural and familiar regardless of where you go. There's a classic saying that McDonald's doesn't make the best burger, but they make the most consistent burger. And I think a DSO needs to focus in on that. Hopefully higher quality than a McDonald's and better ingredients, but that idea of you kind of know where the bathroom is, you kind of know what to expect when you get greeted, you kind of know what the checkout experience is. There really should not be a difference in experience from location to location throughout your brand. And that starts with your websites all the way through to how you're managing your patient engagement, your newsletters, to how they greet you in the office, to how they check you out and rebook you. That level of standardization, that level of consistency is one of the real superpowers that a DSO has. And covering obviously a large geographical area drives that convenience where if you have a toothache and you're not maybe in your home state and you're part of a DSO, you can find a local branch. And they're going to have your health records because they have standardized record keeping across the board. So yeah, I think, similarly to any dentist, they need to understand why are patients choosing to go to them and then lean into those things. And I think it's going to be around convenience. It's going to be around consistency. It's going to be around, a singular health record that follows you from whichever location you happen to be at that day.
Perfect. Okay, and the last trend in our report is the persistent issue of staff shortages. Why is it that this trend has kind of held steady over time, or at least in the last several years?
I think, there's as more offices are opening, you need to find more staff to fill them. And there's a lot of temptations for offices to try to find some shortcuts. I've heard of a lot of offices hiring Susie AI to be their front desk digital assistant. And I think that's just a terrible look, to be personally honest. At the end of the day, patients want to have a personal relationship, which means you have to have a person there managing that relationship. Now, you can use tools to help increase their efficiency, but you can't replace that person with an AI or a robot, for a lack of a better word. I do think the staff shortages side is because so many offices are willing to hire people to do this personalized work. And I think what you're going to see is more and more offices are going to be forced to find more efficiencies through whether it be AI, which hopefully is behind closed doors and people can't see it, but just gives them more time and more focus on their tasks, or whether it's through new processes that you create at your office to reduce kind of the physical man hours required to run it. But the shortages are everywhere in every industry. And we had it historically in hygiene where it wasn't so bad. There was actually an overflow of providers. But that really hasn't been the case since the last 5 or 6 years. And I think we're just going to have to be forced to do more with less human resources. But it also gives us the opportunity to be really picky on the people we do bring on. One of the things that in Tibio, because in technology sector, there's also a staff shortage issue of qualified specialists, is that you hire a really, really strong person who can lead a bunch of less experienced people and kind of build your next superhero. You're going to want to have your own training programs. You're going to want to have your own processes that are documented. So you can bring someone, you can train them through your program to do jobs like your front desk or your office management, and not have to rely on someone that's been, working for 5 years somewhere else. And the benefit to that is they're only going to know your way of doing things. And if you have a different outlook, a different brand, a different reason patients visit you versus the competitor or someone down the road, that person isn't going to know any different. And they're going to be fully immersed in your way of doing things, which over the long haul, I think has massive advantages.
Excellent. I love that. Building superheroes. Okay, do we have any examples, of clients who have used Intivio to fill some of these gaps, and what were those results?
Yeah, I mean, we have so many practices that tell us that they are saving, hours every single day through and using Intivio. We recently did you actually did the report with
PDG,
PDG,
Pacific Dental
Pediatric
Group.
Dental Group,
Yeah.
and just off, their reporting across their locations was that they're saving over an hour and a half every single day just doing appointment reminders and confirmations. And I think, that's just the tip of the iceberg. When you start to look in how you're managing collecting of your forms, how you're managing your patient rebookings, if they don't get that hygiene appointment booked in the office, you're saving quite a bit more. And, time saved is good when you're talking about staff shortages, but it's really about where are you reinvesting that time and what kind of value are you driving through that reinvestment. Because there are some tasks like appointment reminder where the system actually does it better than a human from a patient's point of view. But there's many things like following up on treatment plans and having these more difficult conversations with patients of why they're not moving forward with some really necessary treatment that they need to get done that need to be managed by a person. A text message just isn't going to give that level of personalization and care that a human can give on a phone call or even through a personalized email or maybe even a consultation in the office. So what we really try to talk about is not only do we want to save you time, which is I think a no-brainer, but what are you going to do to reinvest that time and how can we deliver more value? And maybe it's something as simple as just eliminating that admin day every other week on a Saturday. Or maybe it's as important as giving you time throughout your day to reach out to those patients who really do need to get some of these treatment plans completed, and they've kind of just delayed it too long. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do, and there's a lot of things we are doing with our customers. But I think it's really about thinking about how would you reinvest that time because we don't want them just to be sitting around and being more available. We want us to reinvest that time to deliver more value to the practice.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that was a great example there. Okay, so we can kind of wrap it up. Thanks, Josh, for taking us through the highlights of the trends report. And is there a message that you want to send to our listeners as they start off 2025?
Yeah, I think there was three words that really came into my mind when I thought about 2025 for, our listeners as well as for dental offices. And I think, 2025 is going to be a year of control. You want to be in the driver's seat. You want to make sure that partners and the providers that you are leveraging, you've chosen and that you believe they really are best in class for what you need. I think it's going to be around transparency. You as a provider, you as an owner of a practice, you want to be transparent where you're really good and where you need rooms for improvement and lean into your patients to get some of that feedback. And finally, it's going to be around partnerships, making sure that the partners you've chosen, whether it be your staff, whether it be your technology partners, or whether it even be your patients, that all of them are working well together. You deserve to have systems and people and patients all working on the same page and being in conjunction with each other. If a provider or a staff member or a patient is kind of outside of that synergy that you're seeing with the rest of your partners, you got to confront it, you have to address it, and you have to either try to make it work or find someone else or somewhere else that's going to make it work. Gone are the days of being, pigeonholed by your practice management software to do everything, or by that staff member to not, incorporate new technology, or by that patient to do things an inefficient way. You need to think about what's best for your practice, and you need to make sure that you are in the driver's seat making those decisions because no one else is going to make them for you.
Excellent. Well, I think this will give folks a lot to think about and look forward to in 2025. And anyone who is interested in the trends report, you can just click a link in the description. You can download it right from there, or you can head to the Intivio website, find it there, along with lots of case studies and other great resources. So thanks again, Josh, and until next time.
See you all. Thank you for having me.
Bye.